Hello and welcome to Some Dude Shed. This is where we tell our silly stories and we try and figure out whether they're true or not. That's it really. That's what we're doing. My name's Mr. Grey. I'm joined by Mr. Black and Mr. Red.
Hi.
YOLO.
All right, so let's get started. I think I've got the oldest one. Probably.
Away you go.
Oh, jeez. Okay, here we go. So, basically, my story is about the English language.
Actually, no, we went by oldest last. We should go by newest.
Okay, sure, let's do that. Okay, let's do the newest
Newest?
first then.
All right. True or false? Morbius is the best film ever made.
False.
It's true.
I mean, I've seen all of the praise it's been getting.
Just morbing away.
It's also the biggest grossing film of all time. Have you checked the Wikipedia page for that?
That's definitely false.
I remember seeing a photo. Jared Leto was in front of it, like, morbing it.
It's not a cult, but it is one. No. So, true or false? The Vatican own a telescope in Arizona called Lucifer.
Okay.
As in, it's an abbreviation.
It's an abbreviation for what?
Get to that. So, It's built in 1993 in the Mount Graham International Observatory, Arizona. It's owned and run by the Vatican Observatory. So the funny thing is, to sort of use this telescope or to work in the Vatican Observatory, you also have to be a priest.
Of course.
All right. They also have an observatory in Lazio, which is in Italy. The one in Lazio used to be in the Roman College in Rome, but it had to be moved because of light pollution.
Makes sense for a telescope, I suppose.
On the Vatican Observatory website, they state their mission as such. The Vatican Observatory is an institution established by the Holy See, as in SEE, for astronomical research and public outreach to advance the scientific understanding of our universe. Because that's what the church has been amazing at.
Well, they did fund they did fund Galileo.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
And he was quite famous for looking at stars.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't your man. What do you call your man? Darwin? Wasn't he meant to be a big Christian fella? And
well, I don't think he was funded by the Pope.
No, he wasn't funded by the Pope. But
anyway.
he was a Christian fellow, I think. Very scientifically minded. The telescope in Arizona is directly run by the Vatican, which is strange in itself, but not as unsettling as its name, Lucifer. Lucifer is short for Large Binocular Telescope Near Infrared Spectroscopic Utility with Camera and Integral Field Unit for Extragalactic Research.
And what's that in Italian?
Arrivederci.
What's that mean?
I don't know.
But due to backlash from the Christian community and to a greater extent the evangelical community, not to mention conspiracy circles, they've had to change the name to Lucy in 2012, so Luci.
Mm-hmm.
The reason it got its name was because there are 3 camera optics and they need to be enclosed in a cryostat, which cools it to minus 200 degrees Celsius.
It's rather chilly.
Mm-hmm. It's basically because it's an infrared observatory, so it needs to cool it down to be able to observe infrared properly. But this could be in relation to Dante's Inferno. So, you familiar with the story of Dante's Inferno?
It's a poem, yeah.
It's a medieval story about a guy who goes to hell.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, in that depiction, Satan is frozen from the chest down in a lake, and he has 3 mouths, and in each of his mouths, I thought it was interesting. In one mouth he's chewing on Judas, and the other mouth he's chewing on Brutus, and on the other one he's chewing on Cassius. Brutus and Cassius.
I don't know Cassius. Brutus was Julius Caesar's buddy who ended up betraying him in the Senate.
Cassius was a general, or one of the sort of generals that also helped Brutus in killing Caesar.
Mm-hmm.
So they're both involved. So Dante wasn't a fan of them too. So I think that's why they were being chewed on.
He likes his Julius Caesar.
Yep. And also Lucifer in Greek means morning star, which symbolizes the telescope's ability to study how stars are born. That's the whole idea of being infrared, or the point of it being infrared.
Okay.
So true or false?
Does the Vatican have a telescope called Lucifer?
In Arizona.
In Arizona.
And there are 3 other telescopes as well.
Oh, where are they?
They're in the observatory in Arizona. It's an international observatory, so there's 4 in total, but the one's owned by the Vatican. It's called Lucifer. Or Lucy, it's called now.
What do you think, Mr. Red?
The coldest temperature was 200 degrees Celsius.
It's only for one element of it, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah, this is the 3 optics. They had to be cooled to minus 200. It's not the coldest it can go. It just had to be minus 200.
See, it sounds believable to me because I can
I
imagine.
should say, though, I don't think it's a specific number like 200. I think it's like 212 or something, or like 213, something like that. But
I can believe the Vatican would have a little bit of a say in, or a little bit of interest in looking at stars, because they have done before, like with Galileo. Why would they have one in Arizona though? I'm not sure.
Well, I'm going to assume that was one that was already made and they probably purchased it
Sponsored it maybe.
or sponsored it.
no, it was built.
They built it.
Yeah,
Oh.
with parts from existing observatories.
What's
I
the Vatican's mission statement on why they have a telescope?
We like space. The Vatican Observatory is an institution established by the Holy See. What is the Holy See? Like,
The Holy See is another name for the Vatican, basically.
right? For astronomical research and public outreach to advance the scientific understanding of the universe.
So any country could have said that.
Yeah, seems like, good response to why do you build a telescope? This.
So you got to be a priest to use the telescope.
Yeah.
Well, in fairness, when it comes to the Vatican, you got to be a priest to do a lot of things.
Yeah, that's true. But once you say you got to be a priest to use the telescope, then it starts looking a bit more like Father Ted.
Oh, in one of the episodes of Father Ted, he could have went, I'm going to the telescope.
Yeah,
You know.
this is the priest's only telescope.
All right. Dougal fucking breaks it or something.
There's a button here. Do not press this button.
All right.
Did you press the button, Dougal? Yeah, I did. Yeah. So
Very
you've got-
quiet.
so you got to be a priest to.
Yes.
I just
I don't know if you have to be a
that's-
full-on priest. I think you do, actually. You have to have, like, your white collar. So, yeah.
that
That's a
sounds
priest, isn't
bit- That sounds a bit too silly for me.
Why?
Because if you're a priest, that's your job. That's what you do. You're not a trained astronomer. You don't know what you know. It's like a very, very big hobby telescope, basically. If that's the case.
Yeah, but you could go train in a field and then become a priest later in life.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking?
The Vatican does fun things like this, so
What if you get the title of space priest?
Star priest.
Star priest?
why did they move it to Arizona? Or why did they build it in Arizona?
Because it's
Because it's empty, not much light pollution. I suppose.
Arizona, there's bugger all light pollution. And
They couldn't build it anywhere with less light pollution, like one of the Hawaiian Islands.
well, it's probably cheaper.
Well,
Hawaii, probably not enough room in Hawaii. I think the one in Hawaii is maybe owned by just one group, but this is the international, the International Space Station. There's like a bunch of different people, countries and stuff. But this is the International Observatory, so different countries are involved in it,
yeah, sure, true.
just like that.
I'm going to say false. The whole you need to be a priest to use it thing it's throwing me.
That's the hard part,
That's the hard part.
not the fact that they
They
have
can't
a
just ask the
telescope called
people. You
Lucifer.
can't just ask the professional astronomers who work there. Can you please get us a nice picture of space? No, they got to send a priest to go and do it. That seems a bit silly. So I'm saying false.
You're saying false?
I'm saying false.
You're saying?
True.
You're saying true, you're saying false. What is it? Yeah, it's false.
Oh.
It's false. But they do own a telescope, but it's not called Lucifer. But the reason why I went with this is because it's actually based off a pretty popular conspiracy theory within conspiracy circles.
The Vatican attracts a lot of conspiracy theories.
Do you have to be a priest to use that telescope?
You do have to be a priest to still use it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you do. But basically what ended up happening was they do have a observatory in Arizona. It's all pretty much true, apart from it's called Lucifer. It's called the Pope Scope. Not really. Pretty
If you had said that, I would have said false.
It's called
Is it called the priest peaker?
Probably. I don't know what it's called. It's probably on the website. So the mission statement's true, the website's real. But there is a telescope in the International Observatory that has a module. It was called the Lucifer module, and it does work like that. So it has to be cooled it's like 3 mirrors, has to be cooled to minus 200 plus. But it's owned by the Germans, and that was built after the Vatican telescope was built. And a lot of people were sort of thinking, oh, did you just do that despite the Vatican telescope people, just to piss them off? And they says, well, no, because we just thought it was suitable because of it sounded cool, pretty much. But they did have to change the name to Lucy because of offense. But it's a module in the Large Binocular Telescope at the observatory. Very very popular misconception in conspiracy circles. Still circulates to this day. Still, people actually believe that it's the Vatican telescope is still called Lucifer. A Baptist preacher. It's argued that it started because a Baptist preacher released a book claiming that the Vatican intended to recruit a new savior from space.
Right.
That sounds like a fun story.
Other conspiracy theories, basically like they do it to observe the firmament, which I don't know if you're familiar with the whole firmament thing. It's basically during the creation story, like God had to separate the ocean into two bits to make the land, and there's basically just like water in space now, like the dome, but it's water. You know the comet in End of Days, the film End of Days with Arnie. They think they use that to like look at the moon to see if a comet is shooting over it to signal the end of days, like Satan's gonna walk on the earth, and also Nibiru, that planet conspiracy theorists love. It's like a planet that the government won't admit to because it has like reasons. I don't know the conspiracy. But there you go.
See, it didn't shock me that much because I know the Vatican funds quite a lot of like scientific research and archaeological research. It just, I'm going to assume there's a bit of a bias slant to the results.
Well, probably. I mean, they're probably going to go for research that isn't going to,
I'm only assuming that as well. I'm not saying that.
Yeah. But if you do go to the observatory website, they post loads of lovely pictures of what the telescope, what the telescope's taken. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. So who's next?
I'll go next. So,
World War II.
No.
After World War II.
No.
Before World War II.
Yes.
World War One.
No.
The sad bit before World War II, but after World War One.
Yes.
All right then.
So maybe familiar with Albert Einstein
Brainiac boy, yeah.
and the E equals MC squared and all that.
Massive wrinkly brain, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
He's a clever dude.
as wrinkly as a.
Wrinkly as an old raisin.
Exactly.
Have you seen his brain?
No, I imagine it looks a lot like a brain.
No,
They cut it up into like little envelopes, haven't they?
No, they I think it's like a German place. Was Einstein German? I don't even know. But anyway, they have his brain like frozen, like preserved, and it's like got twice as many wrinkles as a normal brain, side by side.
Nice.
Anyway, so right, well, Einstein, Germany.
Germany.
Yes, and then the bad mustache man.
The villains of the Second World War.
The bad guys of the Second World War came to power.
There's no way Einstein worked for the Nazis. There's no way. That's what it fucking is, isn't it?
No. Yeah, so, right. Well, Einstein had been living in Germany up to that point, and he was a teacher at German university. But as the Nazis came to power, Einstein was in the US at the time.
Probably said now's the time to cancel my flight home.
Yeah, well, they introduced a load of laws banning Jews from working in an array of services or interacting with public properties or events. But one of the things they banned is the ability for Jewish people to work in universities. So Einstein lost his job, so he applied for asylum in the US, and he ended up there as a refugee. So 1939, war happened, ended in 1945, but Einstein stayed in the US, and then Israel was founded in
Shortly after the war, wasn't it?
Yes. When was Israel founded?
That's up to you. We're not allowed to Google anything.
14th of May 1948. And it had its first Prime Minister, Chaman Weizmann.
What?
Israel's first president, Chaman Weizmann, commented that Einstein was the greatest Jew alive. And Weizmann died on the 9th of November 1952. So after the first Israeli Prime Minister died, they didn't know who to get, or not Prime Minister, President. They didn't know who to get as the next President of Israel.
And let me guess, they asked Mr. Einstein?
They asked Mr. Einstein.
Okay.
But he turned it down.
Oh no, why?
He said, well, basically he didn't like politics.
Well, that's fair enough.
He didn't have a mind for politics.
Probably not. I mean, he was very good at what his mind was already good at.
Yes.
He didn't need
Reason.
Yeah. He didn't need to get into politics.
Plus, he's probably really old at that point too.
That's also true.
Basically, did the Israelis ask Einstein to become the second Israeli president?
Officially, or just some like
No, like properly president.
we sent him a letter and all. And
You know how old Mr. Einstein was at this point?
70.
Oh, so about the average age of the average American president that gets elected.
How old was he? Good question.
I don't think that's true. I think what's more likely happened was they wanted to just honor him
He
somewhere.
was 73 at the time.
73. Nah, because even they'd be like, you'd be too old. I think they probably just wanted to honor him, like, oh, come over and say hi.
But Israel's democracy, right? So he was invited to be an option in the election, right?
No, they had offered him the presidency.
Or just flat out, do you want to lead this country?
This is the early days, you have to remember as well. There's,
Mhm.
I'm going to assume Israel had quite a small population because their population was made up of refugees after the war. So maybe in the interests of the country actually getting up and running, they just had to appoint someone.
Well, they wouldn't have been without intelligent people. I mean, if they were refugees from the war, right? So they were people who were taking part in normal society before they got there, or before the war. So were definitely people with experience, and assuming that they did have somebody with experience to take over, because Israel's still a country today. So someone clever took over.
And yes, they asked him via letter from the Israeli embassy in the US.
Didn't have email back then.
Do you know what exactly Mr. Einstein said?
Nope.
Do you have a quote from him, which would be pretty cool?
Ignore.
No, I don't.
Oh, that's a shame.
I'm pretty sure. Did he not go back to Germany? Or did he stay in America towards the end of his life? I can't remember. I don't think he stayed in America.
I'm pretty sure he stayed in America.
Or, it probably was that his body was shipped back to Germany. It could have been that.
He travelled. The thing was, I think it was later in his life he travelled the world. He did travel the world. Sure, he went to India and everything, South America.
But I think speaking at a load of universities, he was quite famous at that point.
I think his official residence was the US.
I can't even remember if they have his brain in the German museum or an American museum.
Well, I'm gonna say this sounds believable because he was known to be a clever guy, and Israel was pretty new at that point, so they needed somebody with a respected brain to lead them. The only thing is, he wasn't like he himself said, he wasn't a political guy. It wasn't his field of expertise.
I suppose it's not that crazy considering anybody could be US president today. So, I'll say false.
That's true.
Nah.
Had a businessman last time and pensioner this time. So.
Yeah, just...
I'm going to say true. Sounds believable to me.
I'll say false.
True, false. Okay, I can tell you it's true.
People respect a big brain. Big, wrinkly brain.
Right. Moving on.
Well, my story today isn't really about a person. It's about like the origin of a word. So you may know that the English language is basically a big patchwork thing. We get words from all kinds of origins. So there's some of our words are from like German. Some of our words are from French or Norman French. Some of our words come from the Vikings. And there are some words that are even older as well. There's some words that come from the Romans, and some words that even come from the Celts.
Mm-hmm.
There's one word which has a bit of a legend behind it. The word is naked.
Okay.
When the Romans came over, the tribes of Britain, you may have heard, fought their battles completely naked, completely in the buff. You know, all they had to protect themselves was a sword and shield.
And a cloth?
Nope,
Nope.
no cloth, just all flapping about. You know.
They had two swords presented at once.
Yeah. So it was a very dangerous place to be. So the British were fighting completely naked whenever the Romans invaded. When the Romans invaded the first time, the Romans had two cracks at Britain. The first time was with Julius Caesar. He came over, and they were fought off. And they didn't do very well. The British were quite organised, and there was a lot of them, and they fought off Julius Caesar's army. Whenever they beat them, they were heard chanting the word naked over and over again. And the Romans weren't really sure what this meant. It's possible that this could have been the commander of the British.
Commander Naked.
Commander Naked of the British. But the name seemed to stick, though, and the Romans, whenever they invaded, they said that they were under attack by bands of nakeds. So they were being attacked by nakeds. They were using it basically in kind of interchangeably with British warrior. It stuck. And when the Romans invaded again under Claudius, when they invaded successfully, they reported being attacked by bands of nakeds when they landed. The Romans invaded in much greater numbers this time, and they actually managed to conquer the place. So they fought several battles, and each time the British were always described as an army of nakeds. So an army of British warriors is what that could be interchanged with. And the word stuck, basically. So through the years, has been used basically to describe anybody who without any clothes on as being a naked or naked.
Mm-hmm.
Does the word naked mean a band of naked British warriors?
That's what the Romans were using it for, yeah.
True or false?
Yeah, basically, true or false. Yeah.
So hold on. So the commander was called naked,
That's a theory. The British were just chanting the word.
right?
But the Romans would have their own word for...
Yeah, I mean, they could have called them the Brits. I mean, how many words?
No,
did
they would have their own word for naked.
Yeah, they did.
Right.
But how many words for example, how many words did the British have for the Germans in the Second World War?
Quite a few.
Quite a few, exactly. So this is one of the words that the Romans had for the British whenever they invaded. The same idea.
What's the true or false?
Does the word naked come from a Roman word for British warrior?
No.
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 False.
Why not?
Because you really went for... You've properly like rubbed your eyebrow in and you rubbed your face and you,
I rubbed my eyebrow on my face. Oh, well,
yeah.
there you go.
That's all they have to go on.
Giving away the
You
game
touched
now.
your face.
You can't just be a lie detector. You gotta examine the story. Think of the audience. They can't see me rubbing my face and looking like a terrible liar. You gotta.
Well, usually you're rubbing your knob, so that was a giveaway.
That's true. That's all. That's how you know I'm telling the truth.
No, just again, they would have had their own word for. I don't know. It just doesn't. I don't know. It just doesn't clap with me.
Well, basically, what you're claiming is we use the word naked because there was a troop of Britons who were naked when they fought the Romans.
Yeah.
But you're claiming it was because the Britons were saying naked to the Romans.
Yeah. And the Romans picked up the word and basically said they're a band of naked.
But the Romans would have just had their own word for naked. Like, why would they assume that?
Well, no, they didn't use the word naked to describe. Well, they obviously did, but but this wasn't the Roman word for naked. No, they had their own whatever Latin word is. Right. Imagine the British are invading Germany, and they call them all krauts.
Yeah.
That's what the Roman word naked was the kraut word for the British whenever they invaded.
And it came to mean naked all over the world.
Yeah, basically. Well, the all over the world bit, that was down to the British Empire a good 1,500 years later. But, you
ever heard of General Butt Naked?
General Butt Naked?
Yeah.
No, never.
He was an actual general in Africa, I think. But he had a child soldier army as well.
Really?
But they all ran into battle high on cocaine and naked. And they ran in naked because they thought it gave them superpowers.
Was this a successful tactic?
Well, yeah, Uh-huh. In fact, the general is still alive today.
Oh.
And he goes around preaching now, preaching the word of the Lord.
A while.
Because he sacrificed children and all too. General Butt Naked.
Anyone can be redeemed, I suppose.
Yep. But no, false.
This is false. You're saying false? Mr. Red.
Doesn't even care. No. It could have been a Roman word that was just picked up on rather than the British giving it to them.
But was this tribe of Britons always fighting naked?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure, true.
All right then.
False.
Well, I can tell you this is completely false.
Oh gee, I'm surprised.
The word, the word is German in origin. It comes from Saxons. So there you go. I'm sorry, guys. That was terrible. That was a really bad one.
That was good.
Um,
It was the face touch and give you away though.
oh dear.
That's all I had to go on.
I'm gonna have to get you to not look at me next time. I think that's probably the end. I hope whoever's listening has learned something from this amazing discussion.
You didn't learn where the origin of naked came from?
Nope.
Germany.
Yeah, it came from German.
Yeah, but not the actual story about how the word came about. Wasn't it like a band of Britons who were naked?
Sadly not. That'd be pretty. It would be pretty cool though if it was.
Were they naked though?
Yeah, they were. That is actually a thing. It was. It's not a very good battle tactic, but you have to be bloody brave to charge a wall of shields and swords with literally no protection.
I couldn't fight a naked man.
You couldn't.
Nah.
Why not?
Because I just don't want him near me. There's nothing more gross than a naked man. On that note.
Till next time.
If you've been personally affected by any of these stories,
Nobody cares.
Okay.
Bye.
More time.
Morbin time.